Hey trick class, I want to go through a handful of these problems from the 8-5 homework set, because you got to remember you're not going to have access to these formulas on your midterm. So you need to know some of these formulas. You need to know for these sum formulas. Cosine has cosines together and then the sines together, okay? But the thing is, cosine switches signs in between these. So this is a plus here, this is going to end up being a minus here. So when I'm looking for my choices, I want the one that has the minus. Alright, so cosine, cosine, minus sine, sine, when we're doing the sum and difference formulas, okay? Sine, notice it has one sine, one cosine, one cosine, one sine. It switches, like sine is with alpha, and cosine is with alpha. Cosine's with beta, sine's with beta. So when you see the sine, sum, or difference formulas, you're going to see one of each. Now sine stays, like cosine switches, sine stays. So this is a minus here, it's also going to be a minus there. So cosine switches, sine stays. All right, for tangent alpha plus beta, we're adding in the inside. When we switch over to the formula that has just tangent alpha, tangent beta, we're adding in the numerator, but we're subtracting in the denominator. So we want 1 plus 1 minus, and we want them in that relationship. Same here, plus plus, minus here in the denominator. Alright, so that is the sum formula for tangent. So again, you need to be able to distinguish sum and difference formulas for sines, cosines, and tangents. Now this one's checking, can you go back the other way? So I have a sine and a cosine. So if you recall from what we just said, the fact that there's a sine and a cosine implies that it's either going to be sine 110 or sine 130, or sorry, sine 30. The cosines are out because remember cosine has cosine, cosine, sine, sine. So it's going to be one of these two. All right, now because this is a sine, remember that the operation remains, so it's plus. So it's plus. We add 70, 70, and 40. So that means it's going to be the sine of the 110. So just make sure that you're getting that down. Sine, cosine, cosine, sine, sine. That's cosine, sum or difference. Sine, cosine, cosine, sine. That's the sine, sum or difference. Cosine switches, sine remains. All right, now why do we want to know the sum and difference formulas? It allows us to kind of extend our unit circle. So remember, the unit circle gives us multiples of 30 and 45 all the way around. But we don't get things like 165 degrees. That's not a multiple of 30. That's not a multiple of 45. But it is a multiple of 15, which is a difference between 45 and 30. Or you could get it via a sum. Now, as they're showing you here, that you can get it in more than one way. Right? I could have 120 plus 45 is 165, but I could also have 225 minus 60 is also 165. So what it comes down to is which one of them has the right formula over here on the right hand side. So once again, it's all about cosine and sines being multiplied together, how they're multiplied together. So when I have cosine, remember I have cosine, cosine, sine, sine. So that's a possibility. All right, the next one we have cosine 225, cosine 60, and then we have sine, cosine. We don't have cosines together, so that one's out. All right, the next one we have cosine, we have a sine and a cosine again. That one's out. And finally on the last one, we have cosine 120 plus 45, cosine, cosine, sine, sine. So that one is a possibility. All right, but then remember, cosine changes sign. So when we have a plus on the inside, we need a minus right there, and we don't have that. So it doesn't make it past that second round of analysis where this one does. We got a plus, and it gets switched to a minus. So D is going to be my choice. Out of these four choices, D is the only one that has the right patterns of sines and cosines, and it's the only one that has the sign change like it's supposed to. Now what you're being asked to do here is find what this is. This is where your unit circle comes in. So being able to make that unit circle, reproduce that unit circle on the midterm and final is going to be essential. So here's that unit circle. Let's find these two angles. 120 degrees is right here. There are those 2 points. And then 45 degrees, obviously that's quadrant 1, and those are both square root of 2 over 2. So the cosine of 120 is the x-coordinate at 120 degrees. That's that negative a half. And then cosine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. The sine of 120 is that positive square root of 3 over 2. But we are subtracting, again, because that cosine formula subtracts in the middle. All right, and then sine and cosine are both square root of 2 over 2 at 45 degrees. So in this fraction, I have a negative square root of 2 in the top. Here, the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6. You can multiply underneath the radical. You can't add or subtract under radical. So that's going to be a negative square root of 2 minus the square root of 6 over, and then the common denominator is going to be 4. All right, so I'm just going to transfer that over and make sure it says, make sure you understand it says simplify using radicals and fractions. Okay, you're not allowed to put a decimal. All right, so there's what my answer looks like. Okay, just be careful when you plug into these formulas. Make sure you get your signs right.